The room was buzzing with whispers, but all eyes were on the conversation that had the internet lit up. MelodyHolt's departure from Love and Marriage, Huntsville, wasn't just a small cast change, it was a moment that shook the foundation of the entire show. And now, we had not one, but two sides of history unfolding in real time. On one hand, CarlosKing was speaking out, joined by Kimmi and Tisha, shedding light on what really happened behind the scenes. On the other, Melody herself was finally opening up, giving an emotional, unfiltered look into why she walked away from something she helped create. For longtime fans, this wasn't just another cast shake-up. Melody wasn't a background character. She was the face of the show, the woman whose personal life, business ventures, and unshakable confidence pulled audiences in from season 1. She was there at the very start, when the concept for Love and Marriage Huntsville was just a seed of an idea between her and her then-husband, MelodyHolt. The two of them pitched the vision to CarlosKing, never knowing it would become one of reality TV's most addictive franchises. But now, years later, Melody was saying goodbye, and the way it all unfolded has left fans questioning loyalties, friendships, and even the future of the show. It all started when CarlosKing appeared on a podcast alongside KimmiScott and LaTishaScott. The interview seemed casual at first, a chance to reflect on the show, laugh about past drama, and maybe tease a little about what's next. But the conversation shifted to something far more explosive. MelodyHolt being seen publicly with ArionneCurry, the woman who's been at the center of controversy for years. For those who have followed the show closely, Arionne's name isn't just a side note, it's a storm cloud that's hung over MelodyHolt's storyline since his divorce from Melody. She's been labeled as the other woman by many. But in this podcast, Kimmi and Tisha made it clear they weren't comfortable with that label. Kimmi spoke up, saying her name is Arionne. She has a name. It was a subtle but powerful statement, one that immediately stirred debate online. Some fans felt it was respectful, a reminder that whatever the circumstances, Arionne is still a human being. Others saw it as a defensive behavior they felt should be condemned. And it wasn't just about the name. The group talked openly about seeing Martell and Arionne out together, hinting that their connection has been ongoing for years. Carlos even suggested that this new public appearance might mean they're in a committed relationship now, though. He admitted no one could confirm that for sure. To longtime viewers, this wasn't exactly shocking. Rumors about Martell and Arionne have been swirling for over a decade, with their affair ultimately being one of the key reasons for his and Melody's divorce. But what caught people off guard was how casually it was discussed in this interview, as if this long-standing controversy was simply part of life in Huntsville. Tisha joked about how small the city is, making it impossible for such relationships to stay hidden forever. And that's when the real shift happened in the conversation. Because if this was so widely known, why was it just now making headlines? Was it coincidence? Or was it perfectly timed for maximum impact ahead of the new season? Then came the part fans had been waiting for. CarlosKing addressing Melody's departure. He didn't shy away from acknowledging her importance to the show, saying he respected her decision to leave. He also made it clear that the door was open for her return if she ever wanted it. But to many, the tone was bittersweet. Carlos reminisced about the early days, how Melody and Martell's original pitch was about property preservation, and how he saw the potential for something much bigger. That's when he brought in the Scotts. And the chemistry between the couples created the lightning-in-a-bottle magic that launched the series. For Carlos, Huntsville was always part of the charm, a smaller city with a tight-knit community that allowed for more authentic storytelling. He credited the cast's real friendships and shared history as the foundation of the show's success. But hearing this now, against the backdrop of Melody's exit, felt different. Because while the show was built on the bonds between these couples, it was also built on the drama and fractures that tested those bonds. And Melody's departure felt like the result of one fracture too many. While Carlos and the Scotts gave their version, Melody was somewhere else entirely, standing on a stage, speaking at a conference, and pouring her heart out to an audience that hung on every word. This wasn't just a TV star doing press. This was a woman speaking her truth, raw and unfiltered. She talked about how she had walked away from 6 figures a month because the environment she was in no longer served her. She described days when she didn't want to get out of bed, when she sat crying in her closet, drowning in tears, all because of what and who she was connected to. Her words painted a picture of someone who had been carrying emotional weight for far too long. Melody said she realized she couldn't pour into others when she was constantly being pulled down herself. She spoke about purpose, how she felt called to inspire, encourage, and lift others up. But the constant emotional roller coaster of the show made that impossible. And then she dropped one of the most powerful lines of the night. "You're not bigger than God's purpose for me." She said it didn't matter how many times someone told her they could make another me, or that she was only where she was because of them. She knew her worth, and she knew it was time to walk away. What made her speech even more powerful was the revelation that she left without knowing exactly what would come next, but with full faith that she would be okay. She told the audience that sometimes you have to remove yourself from things that no longer serve you, even if it means leaving behind comfort, money, and familiarity. She reminded them that no one is exempt from going through hard times, but that you have to have your own back and stand in your own truth. This was a side of Melody that fans have seen glimpses of on the show, hearing her speak freely without the constraints of editing or production made it clear that her decision was about more than just TV drama. It was about survival, it was about peace, and it was about living in alignment with her purpose. But here's where things get even more layered. Because while Melody's words were powerful and inspiring, they also hinted at a deep tension between her and some of her castmates, and possibly even Carlos himself. When she said, "I don't care how many times you tell me you can make another me," it sounded like a direct response to someone in her circle. Fans immediately began speculating online about who she was talking about, with many pointing to the production team or certain cast members. And that's the thing about love and marriage. Huntsville. The lines between reality and entertainment have always been blurred. The friendships, the feuds, the business partnerships, they're real, but they're also content. And when real-life emotions get tangled with reality TV storylines, the damage can last long after the cameras stop rolling. Melody's departure, in many ways, feels like the result of years of unresolved tension finally reaching a breaking point. To understand why Melody's departure feels so heavy, you have to go back to the beginning, before the cameras, before the fame. Back when Huntsville was just a growing city and the cast members were known only in their local community. Melody and MelodyHolt weren't just any couple. They were ambitious, charismatic, and had a vision for building something great together. They worked in property preservation, a field most people had never even heard of, and turned it into a thriving business. Melody was young, barely in her 20s, but she already had that spark, that ability to walk into a room and command attention. Martell had the same kind of confidence, and together they made a power duo. When they met CarlosKing, a veteran reality TV producer with a track record for creating shows that stirred conversation, it was like gasoline meeting. Carlos saw something in them, something that went beyond houses and business. He saw relationships, ambition, and drama. He asked them a simple but game-changing question: "Do you have any friends?" And that's how the Scotts came into the picture. Kimmi and Scott, along with LaTisha and Scott, were already part of their social circle. They weren't strangers thrown together for television. They were real couples with shared history, inside jokes, and, yes, real disagreements. When the cameras started rolling for the first season of Love and Marriage, Huntsville, what viewers saw was authentic. These were friends who celebrated each other's successes, called each other out when they disagreed, and weren't afraid to put their personal lives on display. But as with any group, things weren't perfect. The pressures of filming, the exposure of private issues, and the constant presence of public opinion began to chip away at those bonds. For Melody, the turning point came when Martel's infidelity became a central storyline. The other woman wasn't just a nameless figure. It was ArionneCurry, a woman from their own community. The revelation wasn't just embarrassing, it was devastating. Melody had to live through betrayal while the world watched, and the fallout was messy. What made it even more complicated was that Martel and Arionne's connection didn't end with the divorce.